My name is Deborah Silverstein. I'm making this video as a protest against the corruption, the greed, the bullying with which I've been treated because I made paintings and then stopped. Because in the mind of the people who bought my work when I was very, very active doing it, the only value that I have in the world is to make more paintings to please them. Whatever else I do doesn't make any difference. The fact that I also play piano, the fact that I also write songs, sing, I'm a SAG-AFTRA actress. No, these things are not meaningful at all. Just that I should make paintings. And not just any painting, but what they want. So in other words, I become a slave to their system. Now, when I was making paintings, I sold about half of everything I did. But at the same time, I was painting round the clock. I mean, I woke up in the morning, I went jogging, I came home, I was painting. And if I wasn't painting, I was out taking photographs for what I was going to paint. And if I wasn't doing that, then I was building stretchers and stretching canvases. So my entire life was devoted entirely to only one activity, and that was painting. So, for example, a painting like this would have taken me days, literally round the clock, to make it, because to make a painting that looks like it comes in one heartbeat, you can't actually stop and take a break. You can't only just work for an hour or two or whatever and do it leisurely or moderately. You have to do it with passion, and you have to do it with commitment, because that's the only way to do anything good. But I was exhausted by the end of 10 or 12 years of doing that, and I needed to take a break. And everyone around me made me feel like I was worthless, like I had no value, like the only thing that I could do to please anyone was to make a painting. My family basically disowned me. None of my friends would talk to me again at all. And I literally couldn't believe it. At the same time, my roommate was giving me drugs. I never do drugs, so at the time I didn't really know what was going on. I just thought I was going crazy. So I stopped painting, not only because I was exhausted, but because I thought I was going insane. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought it was the chemicals in the paint or the turpentine or whatever, the lead in the pencils. It could have been anything. I had no idea. All I knew is that emotionally I couldn't keep doing it, and physically I couldn't keep doing it. And then, yeah, I was left completely on my own. You know, I recently saw a movie, Brendan Fraser, called The Scout. And he's a brilliant baseball player, right? But he's got a few emotional things going on. And he gets taken on by the Yankees. And just as he's going to go up for his big first game, he decides now he doesn't want to play. He can't do it. One thing or another. He can't do it. He doesn't feel right. It doesn't really matter. But his scout initially tries to berate him and make him feel like he's betrayed him. He's disappointing him. He's like this, you know, whatever. I gave you everything. I did everything for you. How can you do this to me, sort of thing. And, of course, Brendan Fraser doesn't react to that. And then finally the scout changes the way he's doing things. He said, you know what, fuck it. If you don't want to play, don't play. What difference does it make? You know what? Yeah, I'll stick by you. I'll still be your friend. And what difference does it make? Because, you know what, nobody's going to talk to me anyway after you don't play, because they'll give up on me as well. So, you know what, and this one fact, this one turn of the emotion of somebody having faith in him just for who he was, and valuing him for just who he was and not just for what he could do for everybody else, changed his mind. And then he got up there and he hit the best pitch, the best game that existed on the face of the planet of baseball. So, you know what? This is the message for anybody who thinks that the way to get somebody to do something is to bully them, is to make them feel, is to degrade them, is to rape them, is to drug them, is to poison them, is to make sure that they don't have enough money to get their own apartment, is to get up in the morning and buy the things that they need, to make it impossible for them to have their own apartment or whatever, or to think for themselves because they're so doused out on drugs that what can they possibly do? This isn't the way to get somebody to do something, just so we're clear. But that's what's been going on in my life for the last 15 years. 15 years ago, well, in the meantime, yeah, so I didn't go back to painting. Instead, I got a degree in music. I went out and I got a certificate in acting, and I was acting in TV and film and theater and whatever, albeit not at the highest of levels, but it was a start. I was happy, I was productive, I felt good, but that wasn't all right for anybody else. They weren't going to take that seriously. So it seemed to me that anytime I was getting close to something, it would get ripped away from me, and somebody would always there to say, you have to go back to painting, All of my relationships ended because the people tried to convince me to go back to painting. Everything in my life ended because someone was always there saying, oh, this doesn't matter. Only painting matters. So they weren't willing to pay me for it, and it's an extremely expensive activity. You know what? This painting is over 30 years old. You know what? It wasn't made with house paint. It wasn't made with finger paint. It was made with the highest quality paintings, the highest quality materials, and that means it's going to last, you know? But it's expensive to do it, and it takes an extraordinary amount of time. So, yeah, nobody wants to pay me for it. 15 years ago, my work was transported from New York to Freiburg, Germany, which is where I've been living since then. And because I was supposed to have an exhibition, and en route, 40 paintings went missing, and at least 30 paintings were damaged, and a lot of drawings were damaged. Personal property was stolen as well. And after that, this whole thing really set in earnest. Now, I don't know if it's just because I'm in Germany and people are easily swayed against somebody with a Jewish name to do things against them, but it really took off here. I was non-functional for most of these years. Anywhere I went, somebody drugged me. For the most part, in the last 15 years, it's been antidepressants. And I recognize that because I had to take them when my mother died and I was freaking out. But my doctor took me off them because he recognized that they were hurting me more than they were helping me. So I did the experience, so I recognized it again. They separate you from yourself. You can't connect with your own self. You can't function. So, well, maybe somebody who's actually got a depressive disorder and it's a chemical imbalance, those things do help them, but I don't. In fact, what I do have is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is a very dramatic thyroid disorder. And at the time, actually, that I was stopped painting, I was also in the final stages of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which in itself creates a tremendous emotional kind of imbalance and instability. So that combined with the drugs, you can only imagine. And I also used to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day, so the lack of oxygen on top of everything else, that was another thing. I remember my brain was functioning on the level of mud. There was nothing there. There were no thoughts there. It was incoherent completely at that time in my life. Yes, Bobo. Yes, here's my cat coming to say hello. He doesn't like being left alone, do you, Bobo? Here's my boy. Anyway, yeah, my baby, my cat. So, yeah, so I've Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So when I finally did collapse from that as well, I never really had the energy to go back to this kind of physical activity. This is like, for me, painting wasn't a calm kind of activity. It wasn't a soothing activity. It was doing battle. Every day I was out there with wielding a sword to make these paintings and to get something that I was satisfied with. And I'm not satisfied with just anything. I have to do something that's the best that I can possibly do. So it was a battle. I was happy when I won it, you know, and I'm proud of the work that I did. And actually the work that I did, it's like my cells, it's like my skin, it's like my DNA, it's like my blood is in those things, you know. The fact that 40 paintings were stolen and all these damaged, it's like it happened to me physically. That, yeah, it's like my life was kidnapped at the same time. And it's something that I'm not able to get over. And you know what? Nobody helped me at the time. My lawyer was corrupt. My lawyer never filed the papers for the insurance claim. The police never investigated. My boyfriend at the time, that's when he started drugging me with the antidepressants. And once on that, I started to say, I'm non-functional because I don't have a depressive disorder. Thyroid disorder or something else. So basically, separating me from myself made me functioning on the level of cauliflower. So you remember those, I don't know if anybody remembers those old commercials, this is your brain on drugs. Yeah, well, mine wasn't fried, mine was cauliflower. So I was non-functional, and for most of the last 15 years, which means I also couldn't earn a living. So for 15 years, I couldn't afford my own apartment. I couldn't barely afford to eat. I certainly barely afforded to get the medication that I need and the vitamins and the other things that I need to take to be functional with the disease that I have. So, yeah, nothing since then went well. There seems to be this general agreement among people that as long as I don't go back to painting, no one will ever buy my work again. So I'm sitting here, I've paid for storage on these things, and there's over 200 paintings, 200, and about 100 of them are about that size, so this is not a small enterprise. But I'm not allowed to sell it, I'm not allowed to make money, I'm not allowed to profit from my own work, because somebody thinks that if they can make me appear to be crazy and that nobody ever wanted my work, then all of a sudden I become another Van Gogh story. And this is the problem with postmodernism, is nobody can come up with anything original. My real story is actually quite original. I started painting, I stopped, I started doing something else, which I'm actually better at than I ever was as a painter, and it doesn't require me to go into battle every day. But no, they have to go back. Oh, she can be Van Gogh. We can make $1 million off of her as long as she's Van Gogh. So yeah, cliche, folks. Right? It's just a cliche. And you know what? It's a really bad one. This is like a B Hollywood movie, if even that. So the real story would be a really good Hollywood movie, but only if I manage to succeed at the end of it. Because a tragedy, you know what? It's not really encouraging. Doesn't make people. It doesn't elevate the spirit, and art is supposed to elevate your spirit. It's not supposed to drag you down. That's what art is supposed to do. So they're trying to create a Van Gogh. I'm not Van Gogh, as I said. But because nobody will buy the work, it's incredibly difficult for me to be able to have an apartment big enough to hang it on my own walls. And fortunately, this is the first time that I have it on my own walls, since I had to move it out of my mother's basement years and years ago because we sold the house when she died. So I've never had any kind of benefit for it. And at the same time, as people won't buy the work, they keep telling me, you can't destroy it. So, you know what? I'm thinking, if this work is good enough to be left to posterity, then it's good enough for me to sell it, right? Then it's good enough for me to earn a living from it. Because usually you don't have both. I mean, in Van Gogh's lifetime, he was considered, his work wasn't respected, his work wasn't admired. My work has been respected and admired. I did sell it, but because I stopped, now I'm being punished. This is my punishment for doing something good and then somehow or another having a health problem so that I couldn't keep doing it. That's a logical way to deal with somebody who's got a health problem, right? Punish them because they can't satisfy you anymore. Anyway, so yeah, the Van Gogh story. So nobody's allowed to buy my work anymore. I recently had a collector who was, and in Germany this is different. He's the most respected collector and supposedly what they call a supporter of artists. He has a large gallery, whatever, he has a foundation. And he promised in writing to buy my work and pay for my living expenses for 2 years here. And we entered into this agreement. I got an apartment, and I got a good-sized apartment. He co-signed the apartment, which means that he's responsible for the rent legally. And he did all of this having absolutely no money in the bank and no access to money. So he managed for a couple of months to actually come up with a couple of €1,000 to pay for this thing. And then afterwards, he defaulted on the whole thing. So I was this close to being evicted, and then he did pay. But do you know why he paid? Because I destroyed about 12 paintings. I ripped them to shreds, cut them up into tiny little pieces, burned them, and I sent them to him. And I said, you know what, this is the fate of all of the paintings if I have to leave this apartment and put these paintings back in storage. So he did pay it. And now I realize that I actually have the ability to control what happens to my fate for the first time, because somebody wants these paintings around. They think they can make a lot of money off of it. And my proposition is that if these things are going to be worth $1 million in 2 years, or whatever it is that I drop dead, or 20 years, whatever it is I drop dead from the stress and the unhappiness that they've caused me in my life, then they're worth that $1 million now, aren't they? And that means that I get to benefit. That means I could actually buy my own house. It means I might even be able to afford to start painting, or think that maybe it was worth it for me to start painting again. Who knows? I don't know, because you know what? I still have the health problem. I'm still exhausted. And if I was exhausted that many years ago, do you have any idea how exhausted I am now, considering that I'm older and considering what I've had to deal with ever since then? Yeah, you don't know what exhaustion looks like. So, but who knows? Maybe I could go back to it if I felt somehow or another, if my work was returned to me that's been stolen, if everything else was returned to me that was stolen. You know what? My mother made me a quilt, handmade quilt, patchwork quilt, and that was stolen in transport. I can't get that again. It's irreplaceable. Just like my work is irreplaceable, anything that's done by hand is irreplaceable because the author has moved on. My mother's dead. She can't make me another one. You know, my brain has been hijacked by drugs. I can't make these paintings again. You know, they did it to me again. Most recently, I was in a play, and the people were trying to get me to be more accessible. This is what they thought. They needed to be more accessible. I'm a little bit, it's not that I'm standoffish or snotty, it's just that I feel somehow or another alienated from the world. I wonder why. Gee, I wonder why. So, they think that somehow or another, if I'm drugged, then I'll be more likely to allow myself to be taken advantage of, which is essentially what it is. So they drugged me again, and they gave me the same thing that my roommate gave me that many years ago. And I know because all of a sudden I started having exactly the same feelings and acting the exact same way. It's like your brain all of a sudden just takes, you can't really tell. It's just like, it seems almost like a natural thing, but all of a sudden your thoughts have gone in a completely different place than they normally would by yourself. And all of a sudden I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and not just about anything, but about an inner kind of resentment to being treated so badly. And at the time that he did it to me, I also felt that because my family had abandoned me, my friends had abandoned me. So all of a sudden I'm screaming at the top of my lungs at the people in this play in exactly the same way. And so somehow or another, this was communicated. Whatever he gave me, they knew to do it again. And yeah, you tell me, how did these things happen? But anyway, I'm not going to endure this kind of thing anymore. There is only one outcome for me, and that is that I'm able to sell my paintings and profit for them in my own lifetime, or I will destroy them. And you know what? I already did it. I did 12 of them already. And I'm going to ask you to take me in, so you know that I'm serious about this. I have to tell you, it would really hurt me to do it, but I have no choice, because the fact is that unless I destroy them, and as long as these paintings are in the world and somebody's got this idea that this is the way they can make money off of it, they will keep doing this to me over and over and over and again. And you know what? I won't do it. I won't accept it. So this is my proposition. Whoever is watching this, my paintings are worth something now, or they're not going to exist for very much longer. That's it.